full of greatness, pigment, melanin, courageous, gender queer to spirit trends, elevate us across the lands.
So it starts off about street medic things, and then it goes into ailments and different plants that support you in those ailments. So what you want, a basic, just like properties that you want in a sanitizer. We were talking about something with protection to protect your spirit and your energy. So I usually use rosemary. So I brought them today. So you would crunch it up. I haven't figured out what I'm doing with this rosemary, so I'm not actually going to do it yet. But you crunch it up, you put it into a jar, and the ratio is 1/4. It's like 1 to 4. 1 part plant, 4 parts liquid. So whatever you're infusing it into, if you're choosing vinegar, if you're choosing Everclear alcohol, I guess I'm recommending right now, usually vinegar will kill all of your basic bugs, germs, the germs. But right now, the coronavirus is stronger than vinegar. So people are using Everclear, and that is a clear alcohol, might be made out of wheat, don't know. But it's available at liquor stores. Encourage your local liquor stores to buy it. And then a less holistic approach is using hydrogen peroxide or rubbing alcohol. And then you can also add some essential oils. And I like to tell people maybe like this much plant is 1 drop of oil. So just thinking as a consumer, as someone who loves the earth or is courting the earth. I'm always courting things. I'm not quite ready. So thinking about that. So we got our protectant. I'm looking if I wrote any other down. This is saying conifer trees as well. And so then you want something that's antiviral. So things like that can be calendula, lemon balm, or self-heal or heal all. Self-heal is one of those plants that has many names. So just double checking. In my zine, I like to put some kind of common plants that people can find in their neighbor's yard. That's where I get my good stuff. And usually people are really nice about harvesting as long as you are respectful to their plant. You know, you don't want to rip it out of the earth or anything. Respectful if you're taking scissors around or if you're just really cutting at those joints. Plants kind of have joints, it'll look like. So then you want a protectant for your spirit and energy. You want an antiviral, and then the third one is antibacterial. So in here we have, again, calendula and lemon balm, and I love to find plants that do many things because then you can use less plants with more results. So just remembering plants are multifaceted. They have so much to offer. They have a lot going on. Like any kind of personality, if you knew me, you'd probably say I have a lot going on. So thinking about the vastness of a plant. I feel like sometimes they get pigeonholed as like, they do this one thing, and they might do that one thing, and they might do it well, but to think of it well-rounded. Think of yourself. Do you like to just do that one thing over and over and over all the time? Yes, we are pretty much plants in some ways. We're living beings. We share that. Bacteria. So maybe you know about usnea or yarrow. Plantain is pretty prolific, might grow in your area. Also garlic, easy to come by. These bulbs. Okay, let's see. It's take this apart a little. Woo! And I don't know if you've talked about in your anthropology course, but making stock. And so that is kind of pieces like this, different end pieces, that part you cut off the carrot, making that into a broth, pretty much. Haha! So each clove is a plant. So these are also easy to plant. You get a bulb of garlic, you plant a couple anywhere. Yeah, and so each of these, I also cut these up, put them on the dehydrator, grind them up, make garlic powder, or just have them for dehydrated soup later. The garlic is antibacterial. This is also saying pine. I've been getting to know the pine tree a little bit more because it is an evergreen. So in the winter, when there's not a lot of choices, it's great to know how to use your evergreen trees, how to work with them, how they can show up for you. And so usually those three are in kind of like your basic sanitizer. And so this sanitizer, you want to be 70% alcohol, so you can just infuse those herbs into your alcohol. For non-corona-related things, you can infuse it into vinegar. I use apple cider vinegar. So 70% Everclear, and then the rest can be apple cider vinegar or water, however you want to dilute it, because Everclear is more expensive than water, pretty much. So if you want to save some pennies, that's available. And then there's also, like Corona, there's different kinds of specific germs. So maybe you're making something that's combating fungus, so you want to add an antifungal into your sanitizer. You usually want to start with your base, but with the foot powder, that's mostly fungal. We don't really have like viral foot fungus or foot germs. So thinking also what you're sanitizing. So if you were doing something that was antifungal, you can add calendula again. So if you're trying to get a sanitizer that does it all, sounds like calendula has something to offer you. And also lemon balm, and then borage and willow. Willow is a tree. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's totally the wrong line. Even when I was saying it in my head, I was like, I had no idea. So antifungal, you've got the calendula, you have the garlic again. This is great. Also thyme. I picked a little bit of thyme from the neighbor. It's like, ooh, want to be back in the ground or dehydrated already. So, and then also oregano. Oregano is just so great. I really love using oregano because it's multifaceted as well. And then also another specialty is microbial. So if you're dealing with something that is microbial and you need an antimicrobial, some options are Usnea. Oh my goodness, I love Usnea too. That's in the bay family. And then this is also saying charcoal. So I've been using charcoal more and realizing some people use charcoal in cooking as well as just a little seasoning. And realizing that everything around us has something to offer. I started this season getting to know these cut flowers more because people say ornamental, but I'm learning, like we talked about tulip, making that poultice. We could do a poultice real quick. So you take a petal off, give some gratitude. If you're making a poultice for yourself, you can use your own saliva. If you're making a poultice for someone else, either use their saliva or use, especially right now, use water. So you can do fresh poultice, dehydrated poultice, but you just have to rehydrate it first. So
what is poultice?
Poultice.
I've never heard of that word before.
So poultice, I don't know what it means, but it's defined as something you chop up and put on your skin.
Okay, like I don't know, a salve or
It's like a salve, but it's just it's the plant. So you're using a leaf to make a poultice.
Oh, okay.
So I'm making it for myself, so I just roll it up, crunch it up in my mouth, just a little bit. Gunk. And I burned myself on this something yesterday. So then you just apply it. And then you would put like a piece of tape or something over it to hold it on. And then it's just like secreting its juice on your skin. Poultices are usually topical remedies, but they can also, sometimes people do poultice for internal things. It also works. So just knowing what you have. This is a quick way. If you're out somewhere, you get a cut, you get a bee sting, really easy. Usually the last flower the bee was at, try that leaf. They usually can help. There's so many remedies in nature. The plants really want to help us. There's also the narrative that plants are our ancestors. Plants were the first living things after water. So we more or less grew from plants to where we are now. So have this poultice, just kind of care for yourself. I love telling people after you medicate to rest. After you receive care, rest. And rest is just as important as the medicine, and to be happy to rest. I just want to encourage you that rest is your friend. Maybe another easy friend to make during quarantine. Perhaps. So those are the things. You want a protectant for your energy and spirit. You want an antiviral and a bacterial. And then depending who you're up against, what virus or what germ, you can add antifungal, antimicrobial. So those are the basic ways to make a sanitizer.
Amazing. As you were talking, I was putting these things in the chat so that it's like easy for folks to note down, especially for me too. Like I could go back to this record and just like put it on a document for me to refer back to. It's so straightforward. It's almost just like, this is all it takes.
It's really quite easy, yes.
Yeah, and it's all stuff that's, if anything, you know, like if we use it on our bodies, on our skin and stuff, and if we put it on surfaces that we've been you know, like touching, it works for both of those things, right?
Yes, for all of that. I would say too, we have a basic disinfectant, and then we have a food disinfectant, and so we don't put any essential oils in the food one, just so that our food doesn't have any residual tastes of other things. So thinking about what you're cleaning is really important. And with our current viral outbreak, we are sanitizing everything that comes in the house. We're sanitizing everything that goes out of the house as just like a base. We've been living together long enough that we don't sanitize the house anymore. We used to do that, and then we're like, But truly, if you're really not going too many places, you want to hand sanitize before you go into a place, when you come out of a place. Lately at registers, there's some sanitizer. Just really thinking about that. Where I live, I think it's federal, so everyone's wearing masks when you're in public. I don't wear masks when I'm just playing outside.
Yeah, distanced anyway.
Yeah, it depends who you're playing with, too. If you're going out with your grandma, you know, love your elders, wear a mask.
For sure.
Yeah. So,
there was a question that Inez raised here. Inez, I know you wrote it down, but are you cool? Like, just because, like, we have kuwa jasiri with us, like, do you want to just talk to the one, you know?
Yes, I can do that. So,
yeah, thank you.
The question I rose was that I have been working more in my garden, and I wanted to find out what plants and flowers were good to put there. And I know, you know, like in SF, there's a lot of invasive plants that come in, or people, you know, plant seeds that are not native to SF and like could do harm. So then I was like walking around my neighborhood, which is what brought it up earlier when you guys were talking about nature walks and getting to know the plants that are in your area. So I was doing that and just trying to like take note of what plants I saw the most. And then I tried to check out a website that looked at like the different areas in SF and the microclimates and what plants survive there. But I was wondering if there was any other suggestions that you have when choosing flowers and plants to plant here. And I don't know if you're how familiar you are with SF, but I live in the Excelsior district, so close to the Daly City. Yeah, like pretty close to the city.
It's like a really residential area, but like concentrated is the best way I could describe like that area.
I think first what jumped out at me is the language we use as a people is the word invasive is what a colonizer never calls themselves. So I suggest like forming a relationship. Some people say weeds are plants that we don't know the virtues of yet. And I think sometimes we blame the plants as a people. We're like, that plant's invasive. I'm like,
yeah,
that plant got here because you're running around, So
right.
Thinking
I didn't want to be that person to run around and bring a plant.
Yeah, so things do migrate too, and I love telling people that there is a natural migration. The plants do move with the people. That's part of what they do, right? They need to be close to us to help us, and they want to keep their relationships with us strong as well, so they follow us around. So thinking more maybe displaced plants or maybe plants that we don't know about yet. Sometimes I just really want to encourage people, anything that people are saying is invasive or prolific, learn its virtues, learn how it can benefit you, because if there's so much and we want to get rid of it, let's utilize it for what it's created for. That's a great way to consume something if we're going to, instead of just throwing it away. We have this like, I didn't put you there, so I'm going to throw you away.
Right.
So just kind of thinking about that mentality, how we're interacting with the plants. And then I would say it's always great to start planting what you really like, plants that you really like, that you're going to eat, cultural plants for you.
Yes.
Rematriation, bringing back the native plants, learning about them, put them in there as well. Since we're also kind of displaced, it's not just native plants anymore, right? We need to think about who we are, our cultures, that we want to keep going in these new places that we are. I just recommend anything. If you really love cauliflower, like find some that grows in your area, is really important, because you want to have that connection already. You want to foster a connection that you already have, and then you can make some new connections as well. Maybe I would say different ailments you have, finding plants that are regional to you that help. Because that's what I want to be surrounded by. Plants I really love eating, plants that help me with, I guess I don't have chronic issues, but I definitely have like reoccurring or ongoing things that I need regular care for. So thinking about that, maybe you cut easy, you bruise easy, thinking about those plants around you that, or if you cook a lot, just your culinary herbs. I think those are great places, just starting with relationships that you already have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and thanks for talking to me about that word invasive. I use that word because I talked to a girl here in SF that she works with some organization. I think they're connected to our SF parks, and I guess what they do is they go into our parks and look for what she said was invasive plants. And I don't know if they remove them, but they definitely look for them and mark them. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure what the process of that was. But from what I understood of her, were just plants that were not from here.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, so I had in my mind that it's not good to bring plants that are not from here. But you did bring up a good point. I mean, plants migrate with us. So I don't know. I guess I was confused on that concept.
Yeah, and I would also say the people who come up with the language invasive are also, I'm going to say the big business people or the forestry service. They brought those plants because they thought it would help whatever. And then they realized the plants actually became prolific in the region and started taking resources from the other plants. And so then they're like, they're invasive. And then they're like, community, go get them. You know, I'm like, this is your fault. You figure it out. And also, like, we brought them here and now we live with them. You know, trying to eradicate them is how we treat humans. And there is a direct correlation on how we treat the planet and how we treat other humans and non-human animals. And the more we address that, the more we shift that in our bodies, the closer we get to that balance that we all need to survive on this planet.
Brilliant. Excellent. I really wanted to emphasize and thank thank you, Ines, thank you, Kuwa Jasiri, for like having this conversation, because this topic specifically, I want to highlight what Kuwa Jasiri said in the beginning with, like, what is your intention? What is your purpose? Like, when you're out there getting to know your plants and foraging them or planting them, you know, like, one thing that I've experienced kind of recently in putting more intention in building relationships with my plants, especially the one I'm growing for this class and with this class, is that I have a as I'm watering my plant, like my herb plant, I'm letting, like, thank you so much for, like, continuing to try to grow for me, because like my purpose or my intention with you is, like, I want to learn more about sage. And, like, you know, I'm not saying this out loud because, like, but you can if you want to, but in my mind it's almost just like a meditation or a prayer, a way to commune with the plant. As I'm giving it nourishment, I'm letting it know why I need it. You know what I mean? And I've noticed how much when I repotted my plant and I've had those conversations with it, like, how much better it's growing. At first, there was a little dieback because I repotted it, and I put it in a new place with more sun. But as I kept reminding it of, like, you know, you're really helping me out in this like purpose that I want to have you for, and that your life is going to, like, help my life in this way, this particular purpose I have, you know, like, it's really helped the plant grow. Like, I don't know if that's scientific for what other people, but, like, for me, I'm like, yo, this is real, this is truth, because, like, I see it happening before my eyes, you know, and that's why intention and purpose, if we think about folks who planted those invasive plants or now want to remove those invasive plants, like, what were their intentions and purpose for doing that? It's like, oh, we only want a native plant garden, so, like, we must kill everything else that's not in the native plant garden. Or if you think about big agriculture with monocropping, right? Like, oh, we only want to grow a bunch of, like, corn or soybeans, so we must kill everything that is not helping the corn or the soybean, right? And how your intention and purpose really is going to be the driving factor of why you're growing these things and how it's going to grow. Hey.
I did want to point out a few more things quickly.
Yes. Go for it.
You know, herbs are expensive. They definitely add up, especially if they're not already in your budget. So at least if you're on food stamps, and if you're not, these are just some places you can get herbs. But I wanted to talk about some places you can get herbs with food stamps, because usually you can't get tea with your food stamps. You can't get anything that has a supplemental fact label instead of a nutritional fact label. So we have a place here called Natural Grocers, or Vitamin Cottage, it might be called where you live. And they have an extensive aisle. They have like a whole half an aisle of herbs in these bags. They're prepackaged. They're very affordable, and you can get them with your food stamps. So that's a really great resource. And then in general, if you go to the produce aisle, they're more and more creating this fresh herb section, or they have like slices of aloe vera. So you can look into that when you're at the store, and then you'll be able to get those with your food stamps as well. Really quick, that's it.
Yeah, thank you. That's such good information to know. And yeah, I want to be mindful of the time. We're at 3:28 p.m. Pacific time. does anyone, and I said to y'all, like, we'll be here until 3:30 or 4:30 for kuwa jasiri. Like,
Yes.
does anyone else have any questions or comments? Maybe we can take a few more, if you're willing to also still stay on, to have a bit more discussion. Does anyone have any more questions or comments for kuwa jasiri?
I actually have a question.
Ooh.
Hi, yeah.
Hi, Emily. Oh no, you froze.
Here.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay,
Yay.
so I use garlic quite a bit, and you had just made it sound so simple as far as like growing it. So you just take one section, and I can just put the ground.
Yeah. This part goes up.
Okay.
This part goes down.
And then roughly how far in the soil? I mean, I can look this all up. I mean, you sound like you just shove it in there.
Yeah, just make a little hole, put it in,
Okay.
cover it up. Thankfully, with garlic, non-human animals don't really like to eat it, so it's pretty safe. I also suggest putting it around your border as kind of like a protectant, because if animals come to that, they're kind of like, eh.
That is genius.
Yeah, so garlic can help you in your garden too. And so the roots come out of this bottom part.
Okay.
And then if you plant it now, it usually takes, if you plant it in spring, it's ready in fall. If you plant it in fall, it's ready in spring.
Okay, that's nice.
Yeah, and the only thing is that it looks kind of like grass. So just if you're weeding out the grass, or weed's not a great word either, but taking out the grass. Grass is also, you can blend it up and make kind of like a grass drink. You can't eat the pulp. You can also just chew on it because it's high in vitamin C and some vitamins for you, but we can't eat the fiber of the grass. But these grow up in kind of straight shoots. Yeah, and then it'll form this under the ground 2 seasons later.
So will the grass form, and that means it's ready to be harvested, or is that it just happens and then roughly around fall time I'll know to harvest it? How should I know? Because that's the same thing with carrots. I just never know because they're always hidden under there, and I'm so.
True.
What would you recommend?
You can always dig a little bit, test it, go down there, check it out without pulling it. Just check it out. That's what I do with carrots. I'm like, what are you doing down there? But then these do, so you put this in, it grows up, and then it'll also get, what do they call them? Maybe they call it a sprig, a garlic sprig, but it's like its seed pod is forming at the top. So once that fully develops, the bottom's ready. Also, a lot of farmers think to take the sprig off. It's also edible. You can cook it up. But they're trying to concentrate the energy in the roots. It's not my favorite game, but it's available.
Yeah. Okay. Sweet. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh, and also one more. So you were talking about the Poultices? When you put on your burn, the tulip. Can you do that with any petal? Or is it you should research if you're I have a bruise or a burn. So I'm going to look up and see what plant can kind of aids that, or is it just any of them?
Most plants are soothing. If you're in a pickle and you're hurting, I would just chomp up a leaf and put it on there. But also